So we got our final question, guys, and this one is from a customer. So which is really good to have the customer input, by the way. And it's, how does MULTIVAC define sustainability? So how do we as a business define sustainability? So without avoiding the obvious of going into what sustainability actually means in the urban, not in the Urban Dictionary, don't go down. Everyday tell what dictionary I look at. Yeah. In the actual dictionary, I won't touch on that. But we look at it from a business sustainability from I would probably say like an inwardly perspective and then an outwardly perspective. So inwardly, we look at what we're doing and what we're in control of. So an example of that, the eagle-eyed viewers, if you're not just doing a podcast, you're doing YouTube and watching us, is that we're in a studio for this second episode, and we're in the studio because we're ripping our showroom apart. So we don't have anywhere to record it on site, and that is a showroom that is going to be brand new, state of the art, big investment from us. But it's done from a sustainability point of view. It's an eco showroom, so to speak. And the idea is, how do we keep the energy consumption to the lowest point while still showing customers the benefits and things like that. So you'll hear more about that from a MULTIVAC point of view soon. But that's just one example. Another, we actually drove in the pool car, which is an electric pool car today.
The electric Mini.
So we made sure it was plugged in, and we drove in the electric Mini. I frightened Clive a little bit with my driving.
It was a bit tight.
It was a little bit tight to get 4 blokes into an electric Mini.
Especially with Doug, who's 6'6".
Good fun all the same.
And they're just two examples of what we look like, how we define sustainability inwardly. So we look at what we're doing, and we are very, very conscious. We've got an innovation centre in Germany, the head office over in Germany, and our CEO has mentioned recently how every single new MULTIVAC development, any new bit of kit, starts with a sustainability discussion.
So I had a good conversation when I was out in Germany recently with the tray seal team. So the new range of TX tray sealers.
Yeah.
Their starting point is, how is this sustainable? How is this super efficient with energy? Even some of the other developments with some of the other equipment in Germany, they're looking at implementing KERS type systems for energy recoverment on a movement. So as that movement slows down, very much like a KERS system on a Formula One car, you're reclaiming that energy within the braking and putting it back into like a capacitor cell. So we are, we're not just at the forefront. We are very much cutting edge, looking at how we can be energy efficient.
Yeah.
We're moving away from pneumatic lift systems, which are on some of the older generation and some of the competitors' machines. We're looking at servo lift systems as well, which, when you compare generating compressed air versus using electricity, it's so much more expensive. So all of these things that are being implemented within our new machine developments, that is number one question.
Yeah,
before anything else, before speed, before anything else, it's how can this machine be developed and usage of that machine be super sustainable and efficient.
So it is really great to see that, isn't it? It
definitely.
really is. Karl, you were mentioning earlier about regional technicians.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways, isn't there? There's the machinery side of it, so actually designing the machines to be sustainable and efficient. But there's also, like Elliot said, the things that we can control within our business. So, for example, travelling technicians when we're installing machines.
Yeah.
We're regionalised now, so we've got 6 regions with a pool of technicians who are trained, and we have experts in each area of machinery within that pool. So there's no technicians now driving from the southwest up to Newcastle to install a machine because they're the expert. We have an expert everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, that's not it's not good for us as a company to have a technician going up that way.
Technicians, like a massive pool of technicians nationwide, so we've got the ability to be able to do that, right?
Absolutely.
It's a speed to serve affair as well, isn't it? I mean, we can get to people a lot quicker than we did before.
Exactly.
I think we've got something like 63 technicians at the moment.
Yeah, just over 60. Yeah.
So I think
most of them are in hybrid cars as well, right?
They are.
I think so, yeah.
Oh. And all of us are in hybrid cars now.
Yeah.
So that's industry leading.
Absolutely.
Certainly in the UK at least.
That's just a little flavour of how we define sustainability, I suppose, as a business, to answer that great question.
How you can be more sustainable with regards 100%. To delivery.
Yeah, I mean things like pallet optimization, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
that's a big drive at the moment. Yeah. So it sounds ridiculous, but by increasing a roll of film, for example, by 100 meters, you can get a lot more onto a pallet. So that customer's order of, say, 6 pallets may become 5 or 4, taking up less space on a vehicle.
In the materials team, he calculated, I think we've taken something like 50 trucks off the road just by doing that.
In 6 months.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's crazy,
Massive.
Yeah. And it's a very, very small thing in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
But
Like you say, putting 50 metres onto a reel.
Yeah.
There was a customer that we were looking at with their packs, and it was something along the lines of, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, but it gives you an idea, removing the pack depth by 5. In there, but actually just reducing that pack depth, less plastics. You can go to a thinner gauge plastic.
Yeah.
You get 1 extra pack per SRP as well.
Yeah.
So then you get more packs around the country on the lorries.
It just makes sense, doesn't it? That's part of our consultancy.
Really is
exactly.
It all comes into the consultancy
exactly.
bit. 100%. It's all these little bits that just add up, and that's really how we look at it as a business.
Yeah, and I mean, most customers, and sort of like fairly broad-based comment, but most customers tend to go bet on braces when it comes to material thicknesses.
Yeah, of course.
And they really don't need to.
No.
I mean, the amount of people I speak to, and they're in 400 or 500 micron base web, and you're thinking, why are you doing that? You're drawing down to, say, 40 mil.
Yeah.
It makes no sense whatsoever.
And what I've noticed, and it's for my job to try and sell this to our customers, the manufacturers, but using plug assist, for instance, on a thermoformer, yes, it's an initial outlay that you've got maybe 30 plus grand extra onto your machine.
Yep.
But if that enables you to use 50 micron less on your material,
the buyback
times that by
the
5 years,
saving will pay for
it's
it.
huge. I mean, I think the saving is after a year and a bit actually by down gauging.
And then
capacity.
adding EPR for next year coming into, or 2024 coming into it, the savings are even quicker.
So every customer I now quote a thermoformer to, I put a plug assist option on. Yes, it's an additional cost.
Yeah.
But when you work through the saving on plastic reduction, down gauging your material, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, sure.
So
absolutely.
That's great.
I suppose from the outward point of view, sustainability as well for us is about making sure the machines are working first time. So we're not putting machines in there and having loads of rework, for example, because all of that rework is just going in the bin.
Yeah.
Not
Bad
even
seals.
sometimes the product it gets wasted.
Yep.
So making sure we're sealing first time on thermoformers, tray sealers, chamber machines, whatever it is, means that we can just be more sustainable as a whole.
Yeah, it's a great point. So that was some questions. Just I think they were really good to show that sustainability goes beyond just the actual packaging type, right? So we thought, and the reason why the three of you guys are in the room today is to talk about a particular project that we've had recently that we were really charged as a business to really go beyond the whole line as a sustainability project, and we did this via like the consultancy group that we have in MULTIVAC. So Doug, you sort of led up the project.
Yep.
Just to give it a bit of an intro for everyone, this is to do with pet food, huge growing market for us as a business. So these guys came to you, customer came to you, and sort of how did they intro the project and what was the brief?
Yeah, I mean, for their main brief and remit, what they wanted from the project is number one is a recyclable pack. Of course, they needed to scale up from where they were. Where they're currently doing it is quite a small production site, and they're doing it in a certain way that was very labour intensive, and the process took a long time. So they came to us. They know that MULTIVAC are a one-stop shop, so we can do the processing equipment, we can do the filling equipment, we can do the packaging, and we can do the materials. So they came to us. We can project manage that as a whole, start to finish. They didn't need to include several different companies and put that together.
Started just the pack.
Just the pack. We needed to get the pack design right. It needed to be a specific way for their pet food application. They had certain criteria that we needed to hit. So Clive and I went back to them with certain different ideas that how the closing function could be, the materials that it was. And then from that, once we agreed those sort of criterias, we could then work through the process as a whole from the processing equipment.
So
how are we going to manage
from the
this?
start of the actual production,
absolutely.
into the pack, right?
And it was all about energy efficiency as well. You know, they're a business, they've got overheads as well. So we couldn't put anything into their solution that was going to be electricity hungry, gas hungry, nitrogen hungry. So when we looked at and we worked with our partners, Lasker for the processing equipment, we sat down for many an hour working through the best solutions for the best energy usage for their process. So yeah, it was really important for them to be super sustainable. That's how they market their pet food.
Because this was a huge step up for them in production, wasn't it? So it went from a tiny little unit to a big unit. The energy consumption gone for, and this started way before the energy crisis kicked off, which is quite interesting because it was even a problem then. Now it's a bigger problem now. So from what I've understood, we've gone at this as like the lowest consumption as possible, which has come from. We'll come onto the packaging in a minute, the actual end product where the consumer will see. But Karl, just talk us through sort of the energy consumption and the like the processing side of things. So taking the raw products, making it into a pack before it actually hits the thermoformer.
Yeah. So do this sort of thing all the time. We know the energy consumption of these particular bits of kit. So they're very energy efficient. But what we can manage to do then is once we put the line together, we can almost give you like a cost of ownership or a cost to run the production line. And therefore you know then how much it costs you to produce that pack from start to finish. So from bringing the ingredients in to it going on a lorry and out the door.
So all of our kit is designed around lowest possible energy consumption.
Absolutely.
Am I right in thinking a lot of it's stainless steel, but we have a process in-house that we recycle our own stainless steel to put back into?
We do in MULTIVAC, yeah. Absolutely.
Do we do that?
In Germany, yeah.
How does that process sort of, what do you know about that process?
I know that what we would do generally, rather than machines going back
it's expensive. Stainless steel and aluminium is expensive. So when you look at a die set, for instance, and you mill out 80% of the material to make the die set, that swarf that's left over, that gets taken, put into blocks.
We do all of that. We take all that.
Absolutely. It gets put into briquettes, and then that gets put back into the recycling.
Comes back to that inwardly sustainable thing again, doesn't it?
It does,
We look at every single bit that we can do and bring that back in. So those pieces of kit that are part of this line will have that recycled content in, which is probably been done for years, but no one really highlights enough. But now that we've got this plastic with recycled content and plastics tax and everything like that, it's become a really poignant point. So Clive, on the actual pack, because I know the brief on this pack was quite specific. So how did you tackle the problem with we need a completely recyclable pack? Because that's not as easy as we know and discussed in length.
There are lots of elements involved with this one. The pack needs to be freezable. So that was a big factor because that limits the choices you have available to you. We also had a situation where the pack needed to be separated, so it's a twin pack. So
it's like one portion, eat me, keep me type.
Absolutely, yeah, that sort of thing. So post freeze, there are only certain materials that will allow you to do that. So it's actually quite a narrow choice of options really you've got.
You get issues with shattering of the material, don't you?
Of
you
course.
When you're down the perforation. So you need to be mindful, which you don't have, as you said, you don't have every single material to use. And that's one of the benefits that we have, that we can go to market, we can find the correct material for the correct application, rather than being governed by the material that we manufacture only to sell. So there's a good string to our bow, being able to go to market with the right material.
And the good news is for the customer is that we carry out a lot of in-house trials ourselves. So cost to them and the risk factor is removed.
And we did a number of trials in-house, didn't we? We probably did about 6 or 7 trials.
That was like in the showroom as well.
In our showroom, We froze it. We threw it around to see how it would perform, how the seals would perform. So we really tested it to destruction nearly. So we now know when we go to manufacturing the product, we know it's going to work. So that's one of the benefits. We're not just thinking, "Oh, is it going to? Isn't it going to? Or it should work because that's what the spec says."
Which is not always easy to do if you don't have that facility.
No, you need that facility. And to be honest, from a sustainability point of view as well, we would, if we didn't have that facility, we'd all be jumping on aeroplanes 5, 6, 7 times.
Going to Germany to do the trials.
We've got to get product over there. All that
Yeah.
product's going in the bin. All the plastic we use running the trials goes in the bin.
100%.
Yeah.
So from a project overview,
Yeah.
we're trying to plan things like that, even down to planning the installation, making sure when we turn up we're ready to go.
Yeah.
Not like we turn up and we're waiting for some.
Yeah, their services aren't there, or we do the
Exactly,
pre-install,
so-
we make sure everything's, and that's the benefit of the projects team. You look at their function. They've held the hands of the customer all the way through this, so that when we get to installation, it just seamlessly works. There's no issues. The customer knows what to expect. All the services are in place. The offload company's there. And
so we've managed the whole thing from start to finish, right?
Yeah.
Looked at every element on how we can minimise that energy consumption.
Yeah.
There was one thing that you really said, blows my mind a little bit, is compressed air is the most expensive cost within a factory.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's huge.
So we took that and didn't we do something with a lifting system?
Well, we run our thermoformers on servo lifting systems now.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that actually mean?
Efficient. It just means they're much more energy efficient. We're not using compressed air to lift that die set up and down.
Just using electrical.
We're just using a servo motor, yeah.
And we do use the electrical to pump the compressed air anyway,
Correct.
so it's almost like double dipping, so we've taken that out.
And compressed air is dirty as well. It's noisy.
Yep.
So there's lots of negatives against using compressed air, and a number of factories identify this, and they're trying to get that cost out of their business. And one of the easy ways is when it comes round to having a new machine, look at, do they have a servo lift system, or are they pneumatic? Well, you want to go down the servo lift as much as possible, and that's the energy efficiency. But also with breakdowns, it doesn't break down as much. It's easier to maintain.
Yeah, it's more reliable.
So looking at a number of things as well as sustainability with servo lift, definitely.
Absolutely.
Go on, Clive.
Just to pick up on the point that I think Karl made about MULTIVAC doing buybacks on machinery. I think it's also true as well that we buy competitive machinery back. If, let's say, for example, a customer wanted to move into MULTIVAC use, we would also consider buying their, non-MULTIVAC machinery from them. So don't be put off to think that it's only MULTIVAC kit we'll buy, other people's stuff as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's all about repurposing, because otherwise the machine either goes to waste. If you can repurpose that machine, whether it's ours or whether it is a competitor's machine, it's a form of recycling that equipment, and it will go to someone that's maybe starting up in the marketplace that needs a startup machine. So
I see so many factories where they've got another warehouse of just old kit.
Yeah, just old machinery.
Which is mad to me, because that is just
it's just stainless
stainless steel that you could potentially use into new kit.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, even when we buy back the MULTIVAC kit, there are a number of emerging markets that don't necessarily need a shiny new 535 thermoformer. They're happy with a machine that's 20 years old.
Yeah.
The speeds, the throughputs, the engineering of it. So when we put those machines back into the emerging markets, that works for them. So
absolutely.
It's a form of recycling and sustainability, repurposing those machines.
It often just doesn't get highlighted, does it? Because plastic, again, is that poster child of what's recyclable. Is it recyclable,
Yeah, I mean, what we haven't spoke about is the tons of stainless just sat there that we could be recycling,
Yeah, it's really interesting. So we got there, and we with this project, sort of the conclusion of this project. So you managed to get a fully recyclable pack that ticked the freezing, the logistics, because this is like home delivery stuff as well as supermarkets and things. So there's a lot of logistics and testing to go into it. So, but it's fully curbside, Clive?
Base web is.
Base web's okay. And then top web removable, return to supermarket type style.
Yeah.
But there is an option as well that, down the line they can go down a peel and reseal version as well. But it's all about the reclose functionality for them. So they've got a number of options. If they want to go weld, seal, for instance, on the machine, and that's 100% recyclable, and that's great for them. They need the opening features at the moment.
Really designed it for future-proofing in different legislation.
Absolutely.
It's really
absolutely.
good.
And that's the great thing about our equipment, is that you're not just buying our equipment and it can do one thing with one material. As the materials evolve, we know ourselves with paper base webs. You can use those with a small addition to some new forming inserts. You can use paper base web to a certain depth of packs, but you don't need to change the machine that much.
Yeah.
So that's one of the benefits of our equipment, is they're quite multi-use.
And pet food is really growing market for us,
Huge,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Massive.
Especially like the home delivery type things and whatnot, and then supermarkets, raw foods and all that. It surprised me how much that's grown, especially lockdown. Maybe it's everyone's got a dog
Yeah.
or whatever in lockdowns and what have, and now I need to figure out how to feed them. But
And the new thing, once I learned last Friday at this plant-based summit, is there's even vegan plant-based pet food now. So for those people that want it, or the animals that need it, and actually I didn't realise this because
I've got to be really careful on this. Last time I got into trouble with
exactly.
vegan.
But I didn't realise this, that you can actually get dogs that are allergic to the animal to proteins. They can either only have like duck or poultry or game proteins, but they can't have chicken, beef.
So a dog that doesn't like meat.
Get away.
Correct. Or there's my old neighbour's dog couldn't have meat at all and had to be vegetarian because he had a skin condition. So there are things out there, and there's also people on an ethical ground that if they're vegans and they don't like the animals being killed, they can feed their animals vegan pet food as well. So it's a new thing.
It's fascinating, this, isn't it? Because all these new different markets. We as a day in day out, we're used to packing fish, meat, cheese, something like that. Yeah. It's really interesting to get these projects, I think, because they really do challenge us and create something that's a little bit unique and innovative as well.
Yeah, and also it's interesting to see that many pets are fed better than humans.
Absolutely they are.
So we've got a final question. Clive's going to ask this question.
Yeah, so it's one revolving around the cost of gas in the market. Obviously, gas has been available and unavailable throughout the last couple of years.
Like CO2 and stuff.
CO2, nitrogen, this sort of thing. So understanding what the cost difference would be to move from an MAP pack, which uses gas, to a vacuum pack. And my understanding of that is approximately per pack would be half a penny to a penny per pack.
Just on the gas saving.
Just on the gas saving. If you think about how many packs some processors actually rattle through, that's a lot of money.
Oh yeah. So this is where if you didn't put the gas in, you'd save about half a p a pack.
Yeah.
So like a million packs is not unrealistic for something like mints on one line a year. So that's a huge saving. Right?
You can get mints then in, like you took the gas out and you put it in a flexible vac pack, for instance, like you get in your Hello Freshes or Gusto.
Yeah, this is becoming way more popular.
Yeah,
it is.
Definitely. It's plastic reduction. There's a tick there. You've got gas reduction. There's a tick there.
Yeah.
So I think absolutely there's a number of people looking at these solutions and going, okay, we've always done it that way. Is that necessarily the right way we should be doing it going forward?
Yeah.
And also I think the end users getting more educated with regards to how bad plastic is, or too much plastic, should I say. Mm-hmm. We understand we need it. We need it for shelf life. Yeah. But if you can suddenly, and especially if the supermarkets market it right as well and say this pack has got 80% less plastic in it.
Yeah, I think we did some sums recently going from MAP to VAT pack on something like mints. It's anywhere, depending on what your base specs are and your current specs, anywhere between 70 to 75, probably call it 65, 75% plastic saving. Yeah. And you can make it fully recyclable. There is a way of doing it as well. So there is obviously that saving in there, but that's really interesting. So it's like half a p a pack plus the plastic saving, and it is very much a ratio. Semi-rigid pack is much more expensive than a flexible pack. There's no two ways around it. So you save money on that as well. You were saying earlier, Karl, as well, something about other gas saving, because gas is really expensive.
Well, yeah, even when you use gas to cool, for example, when processing. So if you're using fresh meat, naturally as you put that through mixers or grinders, for example, that heats up. So you need to be able to keep the temperature.
Mechanical process generates
the machine down.
Yeah, so the product actually heats up as you manipulate it.
Okay, yeah.
And you want to try and keep that down. So actually, with the Lasker kit, you can use frozen meat straight in, which obviously keeps the temperature down.
Because you're starting at a lower temperature.
Starting at a lower temperature, and therefore you don't need to use any gas to cool.
Oh, that's really interesting. So that's a saving on its own right.
Yeah, absolutely.
From that point of view. Yeah. It's a really growing trend, this, isn't it? And it's the right trend, in my opinion. It's just an opinion, but we've seen it more with HelloFresh, with Gustos, less. So mince that's frozen block, keeping that nitrogen out of there in processing, grinding it up, then placing it in a pack, and you've got a choice of a pack. So you go semi-rigid, as everyone is used to, or flex, which is more of a probably a food service type traditionally.
Yeah, I was going to say since the rise of the home delivery service, I think it's becoming more acceptable.
People are getting used to it because they're seeing it in their HelloFresh deliveries. So if they saw that on the supermarket shelf, that's not going to be
they're
alien
used to it
them.
now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I think that's really interesting. The savings are huge. I don't think you can argue against that. Really,
I think if you look at the States as well, if you go to America and look at their supermarket, they do a lot of mints in flex.
They do.
So it works there. Mm-hmm. why wouldn't it work here? I think it's just traditionally.
You actually get more shelf
mindset.
life out of it as well. So in America, there's a lot more shipping and logistics because it's such a wider, bigger country. So you can get an extra weekend out. So you can do 2 weeks, which is like a holy grail for a supermarket. If you can get 2 weekends out on the shelf, that's brilliant. So you can definitely get that as well, which I think is why America's more used to it, because they're forced into that more than we are in the UK.
Yeah, I think as well, America's an interesting market because you've got a different consumer sort of dynamic with them. For example, steaks. They like to have their steaks red looking from a visual point of view.
On the shelf, yeah.
On the shelf, whereas in the UK, skim pack is a very common format for that particular product. And if you look at those packs, the actual meat is a darker colour.
Yeah, of course.
That would not work in America.
No.
Because people buy with their eyes. They expect red meat to be
high
red.
oxygen packs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that when you open it in the UK and the oxygen hits the
Suddenly
surface of the meat, it blooms again.
It's like that we know that though, don't we? Because that's all we've ever seen.
Absolutely.
We're used to it.
We're used to it, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas on an American supermarket shelf, people, like you say, would look at that and go, doesn't look right.
Yeah.
Not buying it.
Exactly.
I think it's interesting, and that's one of the benefits. I think MULTIVAC's brilliant. We've got 88 daughter companies around the world, and we get to see different applications from different countries
and different cultures. And it's really cool.
We can pick and choose and go, And I always love it when I go to the factory in Germany and I have a walk around the thermoforming hall, and there's hundreds of thermoformers in production.
Yeah.
And each one is going to a different country, and I'll always get something from those. That's a good concept. I like that. I might take that back to the UK, and I'll talk to my customers about it. So it's a
the
really
exposure is just so much bigger,
it's
isn't
huge.
it?
Yeah, it's huge.
Great.
It's really beneficial.
Yep.
Great.
Absolutely.
Well, that kind of wraps things up, gents. To be honest, and just going back on the premise of the podcast that sustainability goes beyond the packaging. I think we've really covered it. So looking at packaging, plastics, the end product is really important from a consumer point of view, everything like that, what they're seeing on shelf. But yet there's so much more elements. And as a business, we're slowly and surely definitely seeing a lot more development in that area. And we're really focused as a business on looking at how do we create a whole sustainable line rather than just the end product. Yeah. It's really, so I really appreciate your time. Thank you for having a coffee and coming in for a chat.
Enjoyed it.
That's brilliant. So we're gonna do many more of these, hopefully. So the third one will be next. Look, we'd love to have your questions. I enjoy the questions because they're more relevant to you and people that are listening to this. So add your comments on YouTube or podcasts or anywhere really. You can send us a LinkedIn message wherever you want to. Just ask away, and we'd love to take that into consideration and add that into the next podcast because it's more relevant. And then just to add, if you like the podcast, thumbs up, hit the like button, notification bell,
and subscribe.
all that bit. I love to get that bit in. Like and subscribe. All right, we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.